I work for IHD, the European Institute for Innovation Through. Nice to meet you, everybody. So my name is Declercq. I work for IHD, the European Institute for Innovation Through Health Data, long name, but shortly IHD, being run by Professor Declercq and also working for the University of Ghent, where I'm doing my PhD on data quality specific and the secondary use of data. And aligning with data quality requirements coming from the European health data space, but also for AI implementations. First, to start, and I would like to explain how data quality can accelerate secondary use. But before doing that, just some slides on what data quality is and how we define it in literature at IHD, but also at the University of Ghent. Very shortly, it's a very short definition, data quality. We define it as the degree to which the data dimensions meet requirements. So in general, everybody knows data quality as a fit for purpose principle, but if you would spell out fit for purpose, it's really about data dimensions and requirements. Now, the definition contains two important key aspects. So the first, you have the requirements. And it's very important to notice that these are very context specific, so very depending on the use case in hand. And these requirements will be redefined and will be different over the use cases, but also over time. So if, for example, if you go to AI training or other purposes, data from collected 1 year ago or 10 years ago will have different requirements, will have different layers of data quality. So that's something we need to take into account. And then the second word in the definition is the data dimensions. All these requirements, so if you would have requirements on completeness, if you have requirements on ranges, all these are being organized into data quality dimensions. So for example, completeness is the most known dimension. And together, all these dimensions can form a framework. So if you go to literature, if you go to the European health data space, if you go to EMA, for example, every organization has its own framework containing superficial, high-level framing of dimensions, so completeness, correctness, timeliness, and so on. But within these dimensions, you need to have requirements stating out how you define data quality and how you will assess data quality. So that's important to realize when we are talking about data quality in general. Now, what we are doing at the university and at IHD throughout projects, EU-funded project, but also a project in Belgium, is we are trying to define data quality coming from a top-down approach. So last year, we conducted a systematic review, and we checked all the frameworks out there when it comes to data quality, and we have found that these on the slide, around 21 dimensions are being mentioned most in literature. So for example, if you look down the graphic, you will see that completeness is the most mentioned definition or most mentioned dimension in frameworks. But we also notice that every framework containing completeness is defining completeness in a different way. So when you are talking about completeness of data, in often cases, we are talking about a different definition. So for example, if you are a data holder, imagine you are a hospital collecting data from a patient, completeness will be defined differently if you are talking about data sets being reused for studies, real-world studies, for example. So then completeness will be something different. And that's something which we found in literature, stating that we are talking about, for example, consistency. Your data needs to be consistent towards sort of format, synthetic format, or semantic format, but the definitions will be very different. So this is something very important which we noticed in literature, is that we don't have any consensus when it comes on defining data quality from a dimensional perspective. So that was a major outcome which we found. And we also tried to synthesize all these dimensions into the most common data quality dimensions. What are the most dimensions being mentioned specific for secondary use and for fostering innovation and clinical studies and so on. And we found that these 9 dimensions are most important when we are talking about data quality specific in a secondary use setting. So your data needs to be complete, your data needs to be consistent, correct, and so on, unique, stability, timeliness, and so on. So these are being seen as the most important dimensions when we are reusing data in a specific context. Now, also important because we want to go to the European health data space. We want to be compliant with requirements coming from European data spaces. And then you see the logo on the screen. It's an EU-funded project. It's called Quantum. And Quantum objective is to develop a quality label for the European health data space. So if you are a data holder, you want to submit your data into a health data access body, which will be used that data for research, the data will be labeled. We'll have a data quality and a data utility label. And Quantum has defined aspects which will contain the label itself. Now, all these aspects of Quantum are also being mentioned in this framework and these dimensions. So, in other words, if you have these 9 dimensions and you're assessing your data based on these 9 dimensions, you are compliant with the requirements set out of the European Health Data Space towards the label. So that's the fun thing about these dimensions. You are compliant if you want to reuse your data for other purposes. Now, a second question you could ask yourself is that once we have defined these dimensions, once we have defined the requirements inside of the dimensions, we'll need to assess the data quality level. Now, a second aspect we found in literature and from research we are doing is that currently we don't have any consensus on how to assess data quality. And that's a major problem. Now, one of the major reasons why we don't have a structural way of assessing data quality is because we have this ambiguity in defining data quality. Completeness can be defined in 10 different ways, so it can also be assessed in 10 different ways. So that's something which we also found is that if you have a consensus on defining data quality, the next step should be on how to assess it on a very structured methodological way. Now, that's something which we are doing at IHD. And when we are doing data quality assessments, I'm just seeing that my slides are not currently, but when we are doing data quality assessments, we are finding a lot of data quality errors. Now, for example, we are doing use cases where we found that you have data entry problems, completing data and so on. We have problems with system design and user interfaces. We have problems when data is being lost during the mapping side of it. We have also the fact that data quality is being tackled in silos. So when we are doing use cases, when we are tackling data quality, it's always one department or one person in a hospital that's responsible for data quality. It's not in a generic or in general way. Or data quality is not seen as a responsibility of a person or for a dedicated person, or we just facing a lack of awareness or education on data quality. So all these things are problems, are errors which we are facing or encountering when we are assessing data quality. Now, we're also trying to, based on these results, we are trying to develop ways of improving data quality, on fixing data quality at the source. So it can be through data collection processes, establishing data quality dictionaries, software requirements, establishing data culture inside of a data holder, dedicated stakeholders who are responsible for maintaining or for obtaining high level of data quality. But in general, what I'm trying to mention here and try to summarize is that when you are tackling data quality and when you want to foster secondary use of data, you need to have a clear leadership, you need to have a clear data strategy inside of your organization or a data quality strategy inside of your organization. And that's a major topic which we are finding in our use cases, which we are finding in EU-funded projects, is that if you want to foster secondary use, if you want to go to a data space, if you want to have a real-world evidence, real-world studies, your data coming from the source, you need to have a clear strategy on how you will obtain, how you will collect your data, how you will manage your data, how will you map your data, do your ETL process, and so on. Because in every step of the process, you could have data quality problems, data quality issues, which will have an effect on your studies and a secondary perspective. Therefore, we try to manage data quality from its total life cycle point of view. So if you have your primary source, let's say data in a hospital, if you have your data transformation, your ETL process, for example, and then you have your secondary source where you will try to use the data for a study, for example. Now, throughout the whole process, you need to have a clear data quality strategy. You need to have a management plan. Now, you will see on the slide that we try to identify several steps into this plan. So, in the first step, you have your purpose and scope of your secondary use case, for example. This will be defined by data quality requirements. So, for example, therefore, I need to have data which is being collected in a certain time span, needs to contain this kind of variables with these ranges and so on. And then the next step, you will start to plan. How will you conduct the assessment? Who will conduct the assessment? When will the assessment be in conduct? And of course, what will you do if you find certain aspects, certain data quality errors? How will you curate? How will you enrich your data? And so on. And in all these steps, you need to tackle data quality, also other aspects, of course. I heard the word GDPR mentioned in the previous talks of GDPR compliance, you need to have software compliancy and so on. But you need to tackle in each of these aspects data quality as well. And throughout this cycle, the goal is to obtain a high level of transparency, a high level of trustworthiness, so you can trust your data in the end, so you can use it in a secondary setting, and your fit for purpose question can be answered. So that's a quite important item, and it starts with the source. It starts with the primary source. So there you need to have that clear strategy and take it along every step in the life cycle. Now, this is coming from research, this is coming from projects, and throughout the last couple of months, I'm trying to explain data quality and data quality strategy to foster innovation, to foster secondary use by using Lego. I have children, and they like to play with Lego, but when they play with Lego, it's a mess. All the blocks are scattered throughout our living room. It's a mess. They play a lot with Lego, but sometimes I get the questions from them, please help me build that small blue car I have somewhere here in this pile of Legos. That's a major problem because they don't have a strategy. The yellow blocks are not with the yellow blocks, the blue blocks are not with the blue blocks, so they don't have a clear strategy on how to tackle their Lego items. So compare it with data. If you are using data coming from a hospital and it's not clear how the data is being managed, how the data is being curated, how the data is being stored, it's very difficult to use it in a secondary perspective and to have reliable results coming from real-world studies, real-world evidence. So it's like Lego, you need to have a clear strategy, you need to document it, and you need to be transparent about it on how you tackled it. I could present a lot of examples. I could show you in real world setting how this strategy could look like, but I would like to show you how it couldn't look like, what a bad example is. And therefore, I'm using a study which we've done in a project called Connect for Children. And it's a EU-funded project for which we gathered data for neurofibromatosis, which is a rare disease occurring with children, mainly with children. And therefore, across Europe, we found sites, or we identified sites who are specialized in neurofibromatosis. And we tried to collect all the data relevant for the disease, for the pathology, and trying to combine it, doing real-world studies on top of that data. So the first question was, okay, we need to define variables defining that pathology and trying to find out where this data is being collected and how is it collected. So the question was very simple. We identified more over 100 variables. And the question was to every site, are you collecting these variables? And if you are collecting them, how are you collecting them? So through paper charts, is it free text, is it structured, and so on. Now, this is the answer we got. So on the y-axis, you are seeing some of the variables, not all of them. On the x-axis, you are seeing the countries with their EPD system. So for example, Belgium is using Primux, or another country is using Cerner, and so on, or they have an in-house EHR system. But these are the answers we got for these variables. So you see, I hoped, in a naive dream, I hope to have one dark green box showing that, yes, we are collecting these variables, but it's all structured and in a coded format. But we got this showing that in a lot of cases, it was in free text. Some cases, it was in paper charts. And in a lot of cases, they were not collecting the data, or they didn't know. No answer indicated also, we have no idea if we are collecting this. Having discussions with all these sites, it came clear that they don't have a clear strategy on how they manage their data and how they manage on a quality level. So that was a main outcome of the study, and also impacting our results for doing real-world studies for neurofibromatosis. It was a major impact, and it really was a mess on bringing that data together and doing the study on top of it. So in other words, to conclude, if you want to foster innovation, if you want to do real-world studies, if you want to have data for secondary perspective, accordingly what is being mentioned now in the European health data space, the data coming from data holders, you need to have a real high level of data quality, and therefore you need to have an organizational strategy on how you will manage your data, specific on a data quality level, and how you will foster it, how you will govern it throughout the organization. And that's something which is lacking currently, or is not being tackled well enough. But it's very important to have that in order if you want to accelerate real-world studies, for example. Now, it was a very short presentation. Thanks a lot. And if you want to learn more about what we are doing, and if I may just show you what we are doing in March, the 19th and 20th March, we are hosting in Brussels a summit on data and data quality and how you could manage it from the sources, from data holders, until you are doing secondary studies with your data. So it's about managing your data from collection to application, and then ensuring that you can excellence and secondary use of that data. So happy to invite you all to this summit next year in Brussels. And please, if there are any further questions, happy to address them or to answer them. Thank you.